President Barrow pays tribute to his late vice president, describing the late Badra Diouf as an able vice president. Nigeria faces a shortage of foreign exchange thanks to the global decline of gas prices. And this African community sets to establish a regional monetary institute for member countries. Well, these and more coming your way on The World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching The World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. Now, President Adama Barrow has paid tribute to his late vice president, describing him as not only a vice president but an able vice president who has contributed a lot to the development of the country. Now, the Gambian leader made this remark on Thursday during the opening of the Book of Condolence signing at the State House in Banjul. Yahya Jammeh has more details of that in this report.
Gambians on Wednesday woke up to the news of the death of the country's vice president, Badara Diouf, who passed away in Delhi, India after a brief illness aged 66. President Barrow has since declared a 7-day national mourning for the late vice president, who many describe as an exemplary leader, a patriot and a true son of the nation. While leading the ceremony of the opening of the Book of Condolence at the State House on Thursday, in his first public statement since the demise of the country's number 2, President Barrow described his vice president as someone who supported his agenda to develop the country. He said he will forever remember the late VP Diouf as a loyal somebody.
So Badara will be remembered as a very good man, as somebody who have contributed to the development of this country. We are together during the transition, that is 5 years, because of his competence and his contribution and his commitment and his loyalty. That's why I appointed him as my vice president. Not vice president alone, but my able vice president, who was really supporting me, and the journey was for us to work together and develop this country.
According to President Barrow, he and his vice president Diouf had promised to work together to change the lives of Gambians until 2026. But he, however, said that his VP could not live and fulfill that promise. Barrow takes the opportunity to urge his cabinet ministers to work towards fulfilling VP Diouf's ambition to impact the lives of the citizenry.
Because it was a promise that we will serve this country and we will impact the life of the people of this country for another 5 years. And that journey was started in 2022 to 2026. But unfortunately, he was not able to make it. But I will encourage my colleagues, cabinet members, for us to continue working together and make sure we fulfill the ambition that Badr had for this country.
In consolatory mood, the Gambian leader also described the death of his vice president as sad and untimely. He urges all to take his passing in good faith, accordingly mourned the late vice president Diouf.
It is very, very sad. Very difficult to come to terms. It's very untimely. But we have faith, we have to accept it and move on. It's a mourning period. We want all the Gambian people to mourn Badr. And this is the first time a sitting vice president passed during active service. But it is destined that way. You cannot change destiny.
Until he was appointed VP on 4th May 2022, VP Diouf had served in various capacities including Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Permanent Secretary in various ministries across the government. According to the presidency, upon arrival, the body of the late vice president will be laid in state at the National Assembly for a state funeral. The late vice president Diouf was survived with a wife and blessed with family of several children. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.
Meanwhile, President Barrow on Wednesday declared a 7-day national mourning following the death of the country's Vice President Ali Diouf after a brief illness. Now, the declaration was made through the office of the government spokesperson, who also indicates that all flags will be flying half-mast. The death of the country's number 2 occurred in New Delhi, India, in the early hours of Wednesday morning around 12:41 Indian time, as announced by the presidency. Yahya Jammeh again with the details.
President Ali Mubarak joins the nation to mourn the death of his Vice President Ali Diouf, who he remembers as a very serious, level-headed, patriotic, dedicated and competent individual. The Gambian leader also describes the late Vice President Diouf as an honest Gambian who spent his entire life trying to improve a lot of mankind. According to a statement from the presidency, VP Diouf, aged 66, had trained as a qualified teacher and taught for years at Nusrat High School, the Gambia College in Brikama, and the Gambia Technical Training Institute, GTTI. Accordingly, the late Vice President Diouf took a bachelor's degree from the University of Bristol, a master's degree in English from the University of London, and a master's degree in developmental economics from the University of Bath. He had earlier received a diploma in human rights studies from the University of St. Edward's Island in Canada. Until he was appointed VP on 4 May 2022, Vice President Diouf had served in various capacities, including Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Permanent Secretary in various ministries across the government. He had also served as World Bank Director for West and Central Africa for over a decade, a position he will relinquish to take up cabinet appointments in the new political dispensation. The late VP Diouf became the 4th vice president under the Barrow government in May 2022 when he was appointed as the country's number 2 in the current Barrow administration, a position he served for about 9 months before his demise. On behalf of the First Family, the government and the people of the Republic of the Gambia, President Barrow expresses his heartfelt condolences to the family of the late VP Diouf, the Gambian nation and the residents of the Gambia. The late VP Diouf was survived with a wife and blessed with family of several children. Meanwhile, the statement also indicates that upon arrival, the body of the late Vice President will be laid in state at the National Assembly for state funeral. Arrangements related to the funeral will be announced later, and the book of condolences will be opened tomorrow, Thursday, at the State House. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.
Now, elsewhere in the continent, Nigeria faces a decline in its foreign exchange supply as global natural gas prices have fallen by over 50% in January 2023. Despite the global price drop, prices of cooking gas remain high in Nigeria, leaving both the consumers and business owners expressing concern about the situation. Now, the inadequate availability of forex in the West African nation remains a concern in some quarters. Let's have more details of that in this report.
For over 2 decades, cooking gas vendor Napsin Nelson has been making good profits from his business. But in the past year, price fluctuations have been rocking his trade. There are indications of a global price drop of liquefied natural gas, but Napsin says it may take a while before a new price reflects in the Nigerian market.
Maybe global fall may be in Europe, not in Nigeria here, because the price of gas is still high. If the price come down, we'll reduce from customers also. If it's high, we'll add from customers. It's impossible for something to go up in Nigeria and come down immediately like that. It may come down gradually.
The price of cooking gas went up by 232% between 2015 and 2022, quite costly for many middle and low-income earners in Nigeria.
I don't buy the gas as in full. I buy half. So I'll come to the station to buy gas, and maybe money has been added. So maybe there will be something I've already budgeted the money for. So I'll now carry from the money and pay for the gas.
The price of cooking gas remains high in Nigeria despite a global price drop of over 50%. Liquefied natural gas rakes in 14% of Nigeria's export earnings, and Europe is its biggest buyer. But a less cold winter in Europe has reduced the demand for the commodity.
General global fall in price is actually not good for the country because we don't have enough foreign reserve. We won't be able to support imports. It will only affect the value of your currency. It will affect most of the things you do internationally because you are receiving a less foreign exchange that will impact on your economy, impact on your debt servicing, impact on your financing of foreign imports.
Nigeria is currently facing a deep forex crisis, rising debt servicing and a deficit in the country's 2023 budget echo the need for more foreign exchange earnings. Experts believe that the rising crude oil earnings and more domestic investment could help boost the LPG sector.
Back to home matters, because the Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment, Babukar Smaila Juf, on Tuesday visited 3 industrial enterprises in Banjul, including the Gambia Milling Corporate Company. Now, this is a part of an initiated inspection tour of industrial enterprises in the country with a view to learn their challenges and find possible solutions. Moses Mendy tells us more of that in this report.
The Gambia's turnaround allocation is intended to support the country in pursuing macroeconomic reforms and performance to accelerate a transition out of fragility and build resilience amid economic hardships. The turnaround strategy is being implemented by a steering committee chaired by the Gambia's finance minister and co-chaired by the World Bank Group and the United Nations Resident Coordinator. Finance Minister CDK M. Keita said the gathering is the steering committee's first meeting since the elaboration.
So every office, we have about 1 ton of this station in every office. This helps us to verify, skills of higher capacities.
On the second day of the familiarization tour of various enterprises under his purview, the Trade and Industry Minister visited the Weight and Measurement Bureau before proceeding to the Milling Corporation Limited. Minister Juf's visits are meant to abreast him with first-hand knowledge of the industry's operation and the problems they face. He has been listening to the operators of the industries and agencies with an intent to play a crucial role in addressing their challenges. The Weight and Measurement Bureau is responsible for verifying all weighing devices and products available in the market. Nasiru Jammeh, the controller of the Bureau, explains the operational modalities to the minister while deploring some constraints currently impeding their activities.
Going by every institution really must be faced with constraints, and face constraints, start from equipment, because as you already have seen, equipment is key to the success of this office, because operations are based on, facts. They are based on not mere observations, but are based on accuracy of instruments. So to be able to have those instruments is key. And the other challenge that we highlighted was the issue of transportation. This we've already highlighted. And also the issue of manpower, because as you know, we are operating in 4 regions of this country. And we want to expand. We don't want to be seen to be operating in just few regions of the country.
According to him, the department occasionally embarks on a weight verification rampage in the market to tackle fraudulent measurements. Before proceeding to the next stop, Minister Juf assured to support the Weight and Measurement Bureau in tackling the challenges. The Trade Minister also visited the Gambia Milling Corporation, a flour production company in Banjul. The company uses wheat as the raw product for the production of flour. Its operational manager, Eugen Rabatoko Tani, takes the minister around the facility and discloses the quantity of flour they produce on a daily basis.
The number of bags what we produce every day is 6,000 bags to 7,000 bags, what means 300 metric ton to 350 metric ton a day. The mill can grind the wheat 450 ton a day. So the number of staff is 75. 70% of that is on operation side. So you used to receive a wheat vessel every month.
The general manager of the Gambia Milling Corporation, Jack Shoda, highlights a major challenge that is not only affecting the flour mill, but by extension the cost of flour in the Gambia.
On the outside, which is part of operations, we can look at the port. The port, especially in Ramadan and rainy season, very congested. We can wait anywhere from 5 days to 21 days. There was a time in January where we had to divert a boat because it would have taken 3 weeks and we would have paid a lot of money. As you may or may not know, the cost of a boat has risen, probably tripled in cost, or maybe quadrupled in cost from what it was in 2020, 2021, whereby a daily rate for a boat was $6,000 and now it's $26,000 to $30,000 a day. So every day you spend with your boat at the port, you're paying an extra $30,000, which goes into the cost of the wheat.
Minister Juf wraps up the day with a visit to another flour production company called Nasim Trading Limited, whose human resources manager decries the lack of enough workers despite a decent salary cap.
As the HR here, I always face challenges with the employees, because some of the youths here, when you employ them and they come to work, the 1 day, 2 days, they come, because some of them, they prefer even to be a casual worker, let me tell you. Because casual worker, we used to pay them. But when they come, we have to put them as a professional staff. But when you put them as a professional staff, they work only a few days and they left.
Speaking to the press after a visit to the different facilities, Minister Juf gives his impression about what he has observed during the visits.
It's another great day that has signaled a lot to me in terms of potential to create jobs in this country, but also, like you said, address food security. A lot of what we eat is connected to flour, and we know the raw materials are not available in country yet. Although I refuse to give up on the possibility of the National Research Institute coming up with the appropriate soil and conditions to enable us grow wheat.
The minister's familiarization tour is expected to continue in the coming days, with the industry minister looking to boost industrial development through the use of data to draw a roadmap that addresses trade and employment challenges in the Gambia. For Eyeafrica News, I am Moses Imende.
Now let's stay with local development because the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank on Wednesday hold their first ever steering committee meeting on turnaround allocation for the Gambia. The meeting took place at the Sadauda Karaba Jawara Conference Center in Bijilo. Africa TV's Azadubiai Kujabi has the details in this report.
The Gambia's turnaround allocation is intended to support the country in pursuing macroeconomic reforms and performance to accelerate a transition out of fragility and build resilience amid economic hardships. The turnaround strategy is being implemented by a steering committee chaired by the Gambia's finance minister and co-chaired by the World Bank Group and the United Nations Resident Coordinator. Finance Minister CDK M. Keita said the gathering is the steering committee's first meeting since the elaboration and the adoption of the turnaround allocation strategy and called for continued efforts to sustain the gains achieved so far.
This is the first meeting of the steering committee since the elaboration and adoption of the turnaround allocation strategy. While significant strides have been made in key areas such as transitional justice, macroeconomic reforms and performance, stabilization of the government finances, youth employment and state-owned enterprise reforms, the government under the leadership of His Excellency President Adama Barrow is convinced that continued effort is critical to sustain these gains and consolidate the transition and reconciliation process, political stability, and inclusive and broad-based growth for enhanced poverty reduction. Such initiatives will have to be founded on solid policy and institutional arrangements, improve human capital, development outcomes, and enhanced resilience.
He added that the turnaround allocation is aimed at enhancing and strengthening institutions, transitions, and build resilience to achieve good governance and sustainable development. Mr. Keita continued that the 5 strategic goals were developed after a thorough analysis.
The analysis led to the identification of 5 strategic goals. 1. Governance and institution transitional justice, with the objective to enhance and improve human rights, access to justice, and good governance. 2. Security and political stability, focusing on political stability and security sector reform as a way to restore trust between citizens and the state and continue the positive transition trajectory. Land management, environment, and climate change to enhance sustainable management and conservation of the environment, natural resources for increased resilience and equitable ownership. Human capital development to deliver and improve access to basic services. And finally, inclusive growth and economic stability to reduce poverty and promote economic and social equality. These goals are very much in synchrony with the priorities of the Green Recovery Focused National Development Plan 2023 to 2027, which will also be adopted soon. The turnaround allocation strategy creates significant additional resources on top of the existing IDA allocation.
The World Bank resident representative, Ms. Faber, offers details more on the turnaround allocation.
So what is the turnaround allocation? The Fragility, Conflict, and Violence envelope of the World Bank provides resources to IDA countries. So IDA countries are the countries, low-income countries that benefit from our International Development Association assistance, of which the Gambia is one. And it provides resources to IDA countries that are facing different kinds of FCV groups. So Fragility, Conflict, and Violence is FCV in our parlance. So these are supplemental resources that are provided in addition to a country's normal performance-based allocation. And these top-up resources enable IDA to target and tailor its support to the prevailing conflict and fragility dynamics specific to each eligible country. The turnaround allocation is one of the FCV envelopes. It supports countries emerging from either conflict, social, political crisis, or disengagement, and where we see a window of opportunity for IDA to either re-engage or intensify its engagement to support these countries to pursue major reforms to accelerate the transition out of fragility and build resilience.
On November 3, 2021, the government of the Gambia received the World Bank management's approval to access the IDA 19 turnaround allocation, allowing the Gambia to access a 125% to top of its performance-based allocation of IDA resources. Critical milestones identified in the Gambia's turnaround strategy have been achieved, and this enabled the country's continued access to the turnaround allocation resources for fiscal year 2023. For Eyeafrica News, ICTBI Kujabi.
And you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And from that report there, we now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us.
TAF Africa Global is the first and biggest private estate developer in the Gambia and present in 7 other African countries. We take pride in leading innovation in all spheres of real estate sector in the Gambia and beyond. As such, we are launching the development of the first smart and modern office and retail towers in the Gambia called TAF Twins. The TAF Twins is located in the heart of the Kanifing institutional area and 10 minutes drive away from Banjul. TAF Twins is designed to have 5 floors of office spaces ranging from 50 square meters to over 1,000 square meters, with 2 elevators, central air conditioning, 24 hours electricity and water supply, with the ground floor reserved for banking, supermarket, restaurant and coffee shop. For your bookings and reservations, please call now on 376-2333 or 776-2333. Thank you.
Welcome back. This is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. Once again, many thanks for joining us, and let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, the United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo Wednesday said it has discovered mass graves containing the bodies of 42 civilians, including 12 women and 6 children in a village called Nyamamba. Now, Moses Imendi has more details of that in this report.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has been riddled with chaos, massacres, and horrifying crimes against humanity since the M23 rebel group resumed its insurgents against the government for allegedly reneging on its agreement to integrate rebel fighters into the army. The fallout between the rebel group and the state resulted in tensions that have killed thousands of people and forced many others to flee the East African country in the last 12 months. Speaking to reporters in New York Wednesday, January 18, the spokesperson for the United Nations, Farhan Haq, reveals that UN peacekeepers have discovered mass graves in their Congolese villages of Nyamamba and Mogi in the eastern part of the country.
And we have some disturbing news from our peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, known as MONUSCO. Our colleagues there report that mass graves containing the bodies of 42 civilians, including 12 women and 6 children, have been discovered in the village of Nyamamba. Another grave with the bodies of 7 men was discovered in the village of Mbogi. Both locations are about 30 kilometers east of Bunia in the Ituri province. Peacekeepers launched a patrol to the area immediately after receiving reports of attacks on civilians by the Codeco militias over the weekend. This is when they made the gruesome discoveries. MONUSCO is supporting the Congolese judicial system to investigate the attacks and calls for the perpetrators to be brought to justice. These incidents occurred amid a significant deterioration of the security situation in Jugo and Mahagi territories. Since December 2022, the mission reports that at least 195 civilians have been killed and 68 injured, as well as 84 people abducted during several incidents attributed to Codeco and Zaire armed groups. The recent attacks have increased the number of displaced people to more than 1.5 million in Ituri and reduced access for humanitarians to those in need of assistance.
He explained that these discoveries occurred amidst a significant deterioration of security in Jugu and Mahagi territories. According to the United Nations peacekeeping mission MONUSCO, at least 195 civilians have been killed, 68 injured, and 84 other people are abducted during other related incidents attributed to armed groups. Tensions continue to escalate in the affected areas, leaving the local population in a constant fear for their safety. The long-standing conflict in various regions deepened paranoia and rage among the people, who have been calling for the withdrawal of the United Nations peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, claiming that the peacekeeping mission lacks a genuine commitment to protect them from the attacks. For Eyeafrica News, I am Moses Imende.
And from the report there by Moses Imendi, on to our final story now, because leaders of the East African community are at an advanced stage of finalizing the process to set up a regional monetary institute, the Central Bank of East Africa. Member states of the regional bloc are yet to agree on which country should host the monetary institute, which, when established, the single currency is expected to boost business activities across the region. Here's more details of that in this report.
Speaking to the media, Secretary General Dr. Peter Mathuki said that the East African Council of Ministers is expected to decide on the location of the East African Monetary Institute this year. The institute will serve to harmonize member countries' fiscal and monetary policies. The end goal is to move to a common currency in 3 years. Economists from the region say delays in setting up the bank are due to competing national interests.
Most of these member states are, very afraid of losing their sovereignty on controlling the monetary policy, meaning that most of the central banks of these member state countries will become redundant.
Having agreed to set up a joint central bank, the EAC's 7 member states are all campaigning to host it. Once established, the single currency is expected to ease business transactions and the flow of money around. The EAC's 7 member states have a collective population of 300 million people, and trade within the regional bloc is on an upward trajectory, standing at $10 billion a year by September of 2022.
And from the report here, we now bring this news edition to an end, and you have been watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.